easily one of the most intense weddings that I've ever edited, and the bride didn't like it. She emailed me and she said, hey, we love the film. Actually, her words were, I am obsessed with the film. But she was a little bit frustrated on there wasn't very much coverage of her mom. I had told my crew, like, hey, we're gonna focus more on the grandparents because that's what the couple told me in advance was more important to them. And so just as kind of a consequence of that, which luckily I called her, we were able to talk it out. I found a couple clips of her mom that we could just lace over as B-roll. So it worked out in the end, it was okay. It's just about communication. Everything in this industry is about communication. You're handling someone's priceless moments, they're once in a lifetimes. There's going to be a lot of high emotion, and so as long as you can keep a cool head and interact respectfully and like you care about what they want, which at least in my case I do, it all works out in the end.
Everybody that we're close with, our closest people and family, all under one roof at one time for 5 hours. I think that's never gonna happen again.
Yeah, probably not.
Tell us what that sounds like. What time is it? It's payday.
What was different about pre-production for this wedding? Well, in the first call with this couple, I said, hey, when are you getting married? And they said, in 2 months. That's the shortest lead up to a wedding I've ever had, the shortest runway, so to speak. My pre-production process is usually 6 to 9 months long. Location scouting, filming a story session with the couple, getting in touch with all the other vendors, even the ones who I won't be working directly with. It's not enough for me to send a cordial email. I want to build real relationships with those vendors. That's tricky to do in 2 months. This was my first time working a historical venue, with the name historical venue.
We always said if we were gonna get married in Baltimore, it would be at the Peabody Library.
If you're gonna get married once, you gotta go for it.
Because the building's historical, there are places I'm not allowed to go without an escort. It impacted our timeline a lot to realize hey, I'm not gonna be able to adjust some of my cameras during the ceremony without an escort to get up there. That's probably the relationship I worked the hardest on building in pre-production. Demonstrating trust and building a relationship with them was really important to getting this wedding to work, because there were a lot of things where it was this day is gonna be so packed, I have to get everything right the first time. I can't be waiting on an escort 15 minutes to get up there and make a change. And obviously the crew, there's a lot for them to get right too. The couple's only got this venue for 6 hours or whatever. So they don't want to be waiting around on me when they should be helping move tables or change over things or anything like that. So it was a very complicated procedure. My production schedule for this was 1.5 miles long. I had a crew of 3 people and we were in all different locations almost all day. We hardly ever saw each other until the end, the dance floor. So it was a pretty interesting experience just working like that. We have the little intercom mics to talk through, and so that really makes it easier to coordinate, especially for things like a first look or a reveal where you need people to not see things. For this wedding, everything is different. This is the first time I've had a couple tell me that they're really into reality TV and that they want that to influence their wedding film. Reality TV is just a much more in-depth way of shooting than the more modern, polished sort of style, because we're not just capturing little bits of moments and then sort of creating, a high energy, hype reel. I'm actually cutting their wedding into scenes.
So I have pictures of my grandparents when I was younger on the inside of these patches. I see it for dads usually, and then I was like, you know what, I'll just do it for my grandparents too, because why not?
I'm talking with my crew about triangle coverage, which a lot of them have never done before, and I'm really building this whole day differently.
Is it not disturb sign out?
Well, I have to disturb a little bit. Hi, you look nice. Look what I have for you, your tie. But you have to look at the detail of the tie. There's a special part to it.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah.
Oh, Larry, oh,
These are actual once in a lifetime, so I can't just call a pause on set and have people go back and do that again, or hey, let's tweak that joke a little bit, or whatever. Like, I don't have any of that flexibility. And that sort of coverage where it's basically the camera rolling for like a half hour continuously through multiple rooms, different color temperatures, all the different settings have to change in the middle of the clip, which is a nightmare in color grading because you can't just grade your clip anymore. So it just is. There's a lot that I would do differently. There are some things that I'm like, hey, we nailed that. That scene in the morning with the grandparents, we nailed that scene. And that was our first time as a crew covering a scene that way. But we've got like audio of phone calls. We've got, it was, my camera 3 is also a photographer, so she was more of a hybrid situation. I gave her a microphone and I was like, hey, every time we walk into a room, your job is to just sneak this microphone close to whoever else we're gonna talk to. So Sydney's wearing a microphone and then the other one has to just be dropped off near people, essentially. And so there are some clips of her like moving in the background where she's just like, hey, I gotta get this mic over here. We gotta be able to hear people. Or there's one clip where you can see her like switching off a TV in the background and things like that. And it's like, in reality TV, that stuff happens all the time and nobody cares. And so for me, I had to get that mentality of like, hey, it's okay. Sometimes the shot's not gonna be as polished in order to get more of the raw moment. And that's actually a mentality that I'm probably gonna take with me into every wedding that I film. One of the other wild things about this wedding day is that we were like an hour ahead of schedule until we were an hour behind schedule.
Everything's on time.
A lot of timelines fail at the first look, which is where this one did. It's the first time during the day that like we as the photo and film team often will like hands off. Like, I'm not gonna interrupt your first look. I'm not gonna interrupt your reveal with your bridesmaids. I'm not gonna interrupt your reveal with dad. Bouncing back from that was a little bit of an experience because especially like I could really feel the bride was feeling stressed. She didn't like panic or break down or anything, but you can feel the difference in the air when, when the bride is tight and stressed versus when a bride is kind of at ease. Luckily, all of the vendors she hired were great, and it was a very flexible team of adaptable professionals. The photographer, Lily, that we worked with was super chill and was definitely able to help solve some problems. In fact, she was on the phone with the Uber while I was fixing a microphone while we were getting ready for Dad to do the reveal with her, and so someone's out getting Dad and bringing him in, and it was just a very collaborative effort. And that's one of the cool things about hiring a team of vendors where like you pick the people who vibe with you, because when you have that relational win, you can kind of take on a lot of those challenges in a better way than you could if you just hired anybody, or especially like wedding mill type vendors where it's like, hey, $500, we're gonna send any random person with a camera to shoot your wedding. Those people do not know how to solve problems the way that this crew was able to solve problems.
Ready?
Yeah.
Did you see the tie? Look on the inside of it.
Oh my God.
One of the hallmarks of reality TV is that you can cut away from a scene to an interview with somebody that gets you deeper into the emotion of the characters in that scene.
I'm super happy for him. I think it's the best decision he'll ever make.
Just didn't think Nolan would make the whole weekend about him, and once again he has. But other than that, it's been a great weekend.
What did you just say?
There are people who are doing this in the wedding industry already, so it's not like I'm making up something new or reinventing the wheel. There's a very talented guy named Justin Porter who his whole company's thing, like their whole shtick is reality style. In my experience with his films, they're cut like a full episode of a reality TV show. Like they're 30 to 45 minutes long. I had specifically heard the couple say the sentence on the phone with me, yeah, and like who wants to sit down and watch like a 20-minute wedding film? So for me, the pressure is suddenly on to capture a style that's normally 45 minutes, do it in 15 minutes, but with a day of someone's once-in-a-lifetime memories. That pressure really bled into the interviews, where I'm trying to get these little snippets and moments with all the people who are important to them, and it was really difficult to do that with such a fast-moving timeline. What I ended up doing is I kind of tied it into moments where the photographer needed things.
It's like an angel. An angel. Floats down the aisle. That's awesome.
They looked like they were both very happy and in love.
By the end of the day, we had kind of landed on like, oh, I need to ask someone one question while they're in a moment, instead of asking them, will you come do an interview with me? Because then they clam up and they get all tight.
They thought he would cry. I knew for a fact he would cry.
I love a quick story. I wanted it to be up and down. No other words. Thanks.
And also because we had mics on so many extra people, like we had a lot more audio to work with of people talking about stuff.
Typewritten it?
I love Sydney, I love these.
I said, well, can I have a couple more of this crab cake? They brought me a whole plate full, and I was like, all right, say less.
Why wouldn't they?
No,
I love
just
it.
you.
This is
Yeah.
very, very you.
Yeah, easily one of the most intense weddings that I've ever edited. Longest edit process ever, 4 months. The first thing I find out is that one of my camera operators has probably 80% of his footage is not usable. It was a simple technical error that anybody could have made. It just was, you know, it was his day. He's a very talented guy. It's not like it's on him. But it wound up with like, okay, well, 80% of a third of my reality footage is unusable, or at least will require tons of recovery work, like a lot of editing to try and get it back to a point where it's at the standard that I can deliver it. It was also tricky just to synchronize everything. I mean, we shot with 7 cameras across 4 locations. Some of them had time code and some of them didn't. And so just from an editing perspective, bringing all of that in and like gluing it all together so that I can cut from one camera to the other and the audio is already lined up and stuff, that was a process. That probably took me 4 weeks. And normally I deliver weddings in 4 to 8 weeks.
Everybody has a good Sydney story.
If I ask Sydney to be there, she's there.
Aww.
And she doesn't even think twice about it. I'm gonna cry.
Stop it. Nope,
No,
I'm done.
it's serious.
It took me 4 trim passes where all I did was go through, I pulled out all the moments that I thought were gonna be once in a lifetimes or super impactful to the couple, put those in a line on a timeline, and it was about 30 minutes long. So all I'm doing, I'm not doing anything artistic at this point. All I'm doing is going through and making utility decisions. 4 rounds of that, and I have it down to about 15 minutes. And I'm like, maybe this is as good as it gets. In the back of my mind is the couple in that first conversation saying to me, who wants to sit down and watch like a 20-minute film? Like, that's so long. And so I'm like, 15's getting a little long.
I'm not good with a lot of people staring at me, so trying to do that, trying not to lock my knees so I pass out. Excited to finally marry, you know, the person that I'm supposed to be with, so excited for that.
Most wedding films are like music videos. I pride myself in being a company that does not make that kind of wedding film, but if you just look at the industry as a whole, most wedding films are just music videos. They pick some good songs and they cut through footage to the beat, and some of it is in slow motion and then some of it's fast, and then they put a couple little titles and edits on it, you know, this is the wedding of, or established whatever year, and at the end they slap their logo on it and that's a wedding film. I prefer something that's more narratively and story driven. That's why I do story sessions with all my couples. It's why I bring things like that in. But with a reality TV show, or at least with that style, where everything is scenes instead of moments, like you really gotta let it breathe. And so you get more like, it's not just a person talking and saying something sweet, we're also gonna cut to the reaction of the bride.
There are 2 people here who have almost 62 years of experience being married. And that's Sydney's Grammy and Pappy Gary.
As soon as she said that, I was like, that's when I was like, oh.
Those kinds of moments that it's like, this is an actual once in a lifetime moment in real life that's really happening, and I'm able to capture it in an artistic way, which is a blessing and a curse, because then how do you make the decision to cut any of those? It's like I have so much power that I don't want to use.
We all wish you the happiness you deserve. We're so glad that you found one another, and this day is a reminder that the best is yet to come.
Sydney and Ian, here's to a lifetime of happiness and adventures. Cheers.
To the happy couple.
I think big wins for me and my crew from this project are just the experience of doing something incredibly challenging and still being in good spirits all day. I think that we did a great job flexing with the timeline. Joining forces with the photographer was a big win. Just the way that setting up that relationship was, I think that helped a lot, you know, being on the same page in the pre-production process, and then that translating into, like, at one point we were so far behind that we got to a space that the couple had booked for like 3 hours and they had like 2.5 minutes left, and the venue was not willing to flex with us. And so it's just like, hey, we just got to do what we got to do. Because we understood what each other's needs were, we were able to support each other in getting the shots we needed. It looks like a dominant part of their day, even though they were there for a grand total of maybe 15 minutes. I think another big win was the experience of the cutaway interviews. I would ask all different questions next time, but just doing it and getting over that, like, hey, there's a little bit of a glass ceiling here, and like, this is the first time I've done it. So it's like, we don't do that in wedding films. I'm not used to doing that in wedding films. And it's like, man, who cares what a wedding film is? Just do what's gonna serve your couple. So what can you take away from this? If you're planning a wedding, vet your vendors properly. Sydney and Ian had a team of almost all A+ top of the line vendors. And those people being flexible and adaptable meant that no other challenge that day was really that big of a deal. I mean, we were at one point 2 hours off of our timeline, and we still got through everything that they wanted to get through in the day, got to all the places we needed to get to. The guys literally lost some of the boutonnieres.
You didn't get your boutonniere. They went missing.
Oh.
The boys lost them.
The boys lost them? How did they lose them?
They sat them down to take some pictures, and then they're gone in the lobby. Yeah, it's all right.
Leave it to the boys.
And the florist was willing to just like make some more out of some scraps and give them back to the couple so that they could still have their boutonnieres and stuff. Like, just that kind of flexibility doesn't come from every vendor. That's something that like you need to get deeper than, will you be available on my wedding day and how cheaply can you do it? I think that another big takeaway is just do your thing. Like, a lot of couples feel pressure to like incorporate their parents' preferences, or, you know, well, this is what my father and his father before him did, and so I must do it too. And like, forget all that stuff. Just do you. For me, the big takeaway is to make sure I'm very clear up front with my couples that all of my editing timelines are estimates, not guarantees. Because I definitely, this is the longest net it's ever taken, and it's more than twice the next longest wedding film that I've done. And I had no idea when I started that that's what I was signing myself up for. But the couple were super flexible about it, and I think at the end of the day, I've got a happy couple, I have a crew that had a great time, everybody got paid. Like, you can't ask for a better experience than that. Oh, I wonder how much this was out of focus. That's not good.